guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I am going to be talking about the spooky books that I own that I am most desperate to get to. So I used to do a lot of these videos and I just completely forgot about them. I used to make videos where I talked about the books from each specific genre that I would most love to read. We're back again. We're having a bit of a revival. These are just kind of under the umbrella term of books for spooky season. So some of them are horror and generally quite spooky. Some of them are maybe thrillers and have unsettling vibes. Some of them are just like feature paranormal creatures and I've heard that they're quite atmospheric. Maybe if you guys are looking for a spooky season read, something out of this list, maybe something that you're also interested in, and you can have yourselves a good old spooky time. But this video needs no further introduction, so let us get cracking. Starting off with The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. The reason that this is on my TBR, the reason that I own it, I'm sure you guys can all guess, it is because I am a big fan of the Netflix shows The Haunting of Hill House, which The Haunting of Hill House is actually on my TBR. I can't do this, it's over there somewhere. I'm going to be reading it in October, but The Haunting of Bly Manor is based on The Turn of the Screw, and then I'm also like 3 episodes into Midnight Mass. I know that this is not the same as the show, like the show took the basic premise of this and made it into something different. That is not what I'm expecting going into this, but I've also recently discovered, or not so recently, I've known for a little while now, that I only like gothic classics. So not too long ago I looked at all of the classics I've read. Every single one of the classics I actually enjoyed were gothic, so I'm really excited to get to this one. I'm not sure how big it is because this also has Daisy Miller in it as well, but it starts pretty much halfway through the book on page 71 and goes to 211. So it's about 140 pages, and it is about a governess that goes to this rural estate home to look after 2 children, and she starts to see, is it sinister apparitions? Sinister figures around the home whose presence will have fatal consequences. I have asked a couple of people who've already read this whether it is actually like a ghost story, and they said it is, so really excited to get to this one. And I'm hoping, my TBR is a little bit full, but because it's so short, I kind of want to squeeze this into this year because I really do want to read it. The next one we have is a manga. This is on my 30 books to read before I turn 30, so I will get to it at some point. But that is Death Note by Tsugumi Oba and Takeshi Obata. I have seen part of one of the adaptations of Death Note, which is why I'm interested in it. I don't know which one it was. I feel like it was a live action one with animation in it, and it was on Channel 4 when I was about 14 or 15 at like midnight, 1 in the morning, and I fell asleep because I just could not keep my eyes open, but I was super into it. So this one follows a young boy who stumbles across a notebook, and I think the notebook is called Death Note, and it was dropped by a death god, and anyone whose name is written in the book will die. So the main character wants to use this book to rid the world of evil. I think that the genre for this is horror, so I do think it is a horror manga, and the guy is kind of, I don't know if I like him. You know, the death god, I don't know if I find him cute or if I find him scary. I'm trying to find like a, that's the end of the book. I do know how to read manga, I swear. He looks like this. Sometimes I feel like he looks quite cute, and sometimes I feel like he looks creepy. He also looks like he was in a metal band in like the 70s. The next Grady Hendrix I want to pick up is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I have read Horror Store and My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, and I really enjoyed both of them. So of the rest of the books that Grady Hendrix has, I'm interested in the Final Girls one. Is it called The Final Girl? But that wasn't out when I picked up this one, so this is the one that is next on my list. So this one, I believe, follows a housewife. Her life is kind of stagnant, and the only kind of enjoyment that she has in her life is her book club. And one day she's viciously attacked by her elderly neighbor, and the neighbor's nephew comes into town. Shortly after he appears, people start to go missing in the town, and the main character Patricia starts to think that this guy could be a serial killer. However, I believe that he is actually a vampire, and I'm guessing that she tries to get the book club to turn into vampire slayers. Grady Hendrix writes quite campy horror, so it has a lot of funny elements in it, but it it also has some really gruesome, unsettling stuff as well. I've heard that this one has a little bit of a weird take where it'll bring up quite racist things, and this book I think is satirical in nature, but the way that it's approached, it'll like handle a serious topic and then go into quite a light-hearted tone afterwards, which is a little bit confusing. Obviously cannot say yet because I haven't read it for myself, but that is what I've heard about this one, but I'm excited to give it a go. One that's like more just on the paranormal vibe is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I have had this recommended to me so many times because I like fantasy romance, but it is super chunky and the setting of this one actually puts me off it a little bit. But if I'm going to pick it up at any time of the year just because I want to read it, it's going to be in like autumn. So this one, I don't know a great deal about the details of it. The synopsis on the book and also on Goodreads is quite vague, but we're following a young woman who is descended from a long line of witches, and she accidentally summons a powerful alchemical manuscript from the library that she's doing her research project in, and that brings a whole host of demons, vampires and witches to the library. I think that the romance in here is between the main character who's a witch and also a vampire, and it's set in Oxford. That is all I know about it. The reason I'm a little bit worried about this one is because I think it has some historical elements, and you know that makes me a little bit like squeamish. I'm not a huge fan of history, but I have been reassured that I'm gonna love this and I will definitely get to it at some point. The one that I picked up quite recently is Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. This one I first heard about on Natasha from My Reading is Odd channel, and I found this in a secondhand bookshop, so I picked it up. But this one is I don't know, I think it's going to be like quite a campy, fun kind of horror, but it is essentially Scooby-Doo. It's about this group of characters who in 1977 were the Blyton Summer Detective Club, and they unmasked a criminal who was the Sleepy Lake Monster. However, it is now 1990 and they don't believe that they actually caught the guy responsible for the crime, so they get the band back together, which is, I'm guessing, 4 characters based on the cover, and a dog to find out what actually happened that summer. I have to say I haven't heard great things about it, but because I saw it secondhand, I could not resist picking it up, and Scooby-Doo was like my favourite cartoon when I was a kid, so I'm hoping it at least delivers on some fun nostalgia vibes, if nothing else. One that I really wanted to get into my October TBR is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I have only read one book so far from Silvia Moreno Garcia, which is Gods of Jade and Shadows, but I really loved it. And something that really intrigues me about Silvia Moreno Garcia is that every book that they release seems to be a different genre. So this one is an adult gothic horror that is set in 1950s Mexico and follows a socialite who has been receiving very strange letters from her recently married cousin, who is saying that her husband and her husband's father are trying to kill her, I think. So the socialite goes to investigate, and not only do we have the unsettling presence of the husband and his father, we also have the unsettling presence of the house as well. The main reason I want to read this is, well, it's gothic. I like gothic fiction, but also Gods of Jade and Shadow was so good. I love Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing style, and I do want to read a lot more from them, starting with Mexican Gothic. The next one is a romance, and that is Layla by Colleen Hoover. And this one is, I'm gonna say it's new adult or adult, and it's about this guy who's married to this woman called Layla, and they are head over heels in love. They're madly in love. He thinks he's going to spend the rest of his life with her until she is in a horrific accident. So she eventually physically recovers from this accident, but it's quite apparent that she may not have quite mentally recovered from it yet. So he takes her to the B&B where they fell in love, and strange things start happening. Now, this could just be a thriller, but I have a feeling that it's spooky, and I've heard something about this book that I think is a spoiler, so I can't tell you what it is. But if that thing is in this book, then it is very definitely gonna go into the spooky season vibes. I have read a romantic thriller from Colleen Hoover. I read Verity, and I loved it, but mainly because the plot twists were absolutely wild in that book. So I'm really excited to read Layla, and if it does contain that element, I'm pretty sure it does, I just don't know if it's a spoiler. But I'm real intrigued to see how that comes about in here. One that I'm a little bit unsure about, but it is intriguing me, is The Devil Makes Three by Tori Bovolino. This one is, I don't know if it's young adult or adult, but it was an Illumicrate book, I think for the month of September or August. And this one is a like fantasy horror about these two, I think it might be young adults, I think they're teenagers, and I think they're arguing in the library where they work one day when they accidentally release the devil from an ancient own book, and the devil will then stop at nothing to remain free. I've not really heard any compelling reviews of this yet. It does sound interesting. It has those library haunted book vibes that I enjoy, but I think in terms of horror, this type of horror is not really my personal preference, which is why I'm a little bit unsure about it. But I do like the library setting, so I'm gonna give it a go and hopefully I enjoy it. Once again, because I like gothic fiction, one that I'm desperate to get to, and I keep saying I'm gonna read this book and I never ever do, is Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. I adore the movie to this book. I watched it when I don't know what age I was, but it feels like it's always been present in my life. And I rewatched it last Halloween and I just forgot how campy and fun and dramatic it is. And I really, really want to read the book because I want all of those super dramatic Lestat vibes with the gothic atmosphere. So Interview with a Vampire is about this vampire who is called Louis, I think. I was gonna say he's called Brad Pitt. He's not. He's played by Brad Pitt in the movie. And also, side note, my ultimate fan casting for Tamlin in the Occult of Thorns and Roses TV show, it's never gonna happen because it's way too old, but my ultimate fan cast for Tamlin is Brad Pitt as he looked in Interview with a Vampire. You can't tell me that that is not perfect. We are following this guy called Louis who approaches this writer, I think he's a journalist, in a hotel room, and this is the synopsis for the movie, by the way, so it was a little bit different in the book. I do apologize. But he approaches this guy and he starts telling him his life story, and he's a vampire, so it's about how he turned into a vampire. He's the tortured, brooding kind of vampire, you know, like Angel, where he wants to do better and he's tortured by his own existence. And it is about the vampire who turned him and the relationship that they had and this whole series of events. And honestly, just watch the movie. It's so gay without actually being gay, and the drama is honestly unparalleled. I absolutely adore it, and I just really need to read the book. I know that this is the start of a super long series. I do have I think it's book 2, I have the Vampire Lestat as well, and I believe that there are like peaks and troughs throughout this entire series, but I at least want to read the first one. And then finally, one that I actually started when it was released and just did not have time to read it, so I put it down, was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. So this one is Leigh Bardugo's first adult book, and it is a bit of a dark academia fantasy thriller where we are following this young woman called Alex Stern, and I think she pretty much hit rock bottom in her life when she was approached and offered a scholarship for, is it Yale or Harvard? I always forget. Yale. So she was offered a free ride to Yale with a catch, and the catch was that she would have to join the Ninth House, and the Ninth House is a secret society that is responsible for making sure that all of the other societies are not going off the rails. So in this world, all of the societies of Yale are actually magical covens, and the job of the Ninth House is to regulate them and make sure that they're not doing things that they shouldn't. I think there's some kind of romance in here as well. I'm assuming there is, based on the 50 pages I read. I got some vibes about the guy. I don't think he's mentioned in the synopsis, but there's like a super pretentious guy in here who I'm hoping is going to turn into a romance at some point, just a little bit of one. But I've heard that there's content warnings in here for sexual assault, so do be wary of that. I've never read anything from Leigh Bardugo that isn't the Grishaverse, and I've heard very mixed reviews about this. Some people love it, some people thought it was average, but I'm hoping it's one that I enjoy. So there you have it. Those were 10 spooky books that are at the top of my spooky book TBR. Please let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these, which ones I should prioritize, which ones you think are trash. I'm probably gonna read them all anyway. It may take me the rest of my life, but at some point in my life, before the day I die, I will hopefully have read all of these books, regardless of whether you tell me they're absolutely terrible or not. But it's good to know, because I don't want to be going into something that you guys don't like with super high expectations, because that is only going to lead to disappointment. So even though I will probably still read them, I can at least adjust my expectations a little bit. Also, of course, give me some more spooky recommendations down in the comments. What are you guys reading this spooky season? What are you guys most desperate to read? Let me know all of the things. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish Candle website, the Instagram and Etsy for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.